On my birthday, my family gave me a special present. When I opened it, it was an eviction notice for my own house. I smiled as I returned the favor on their wedding day. On my birthday, my family surprised me with a special gift. A formal eviction notice for my own house. I couldn't help but smirk, remembering how I once returned the favor at their wedding. That day, the notice felt as cold as ice, its sharp edges cutting through the warmth of what I'd hoped would be the best birthday ever. I'm Viv, and this is how my 30th birthday turned into the day my family truly betrayed me. Open it, dear. We're so excited for you to see what's inside, my mom cooed, her eyes glittering with what I now realize was anxiety rather than genuine joy. The envelope, wrapped in silver paper and tied with a delicate bow, looked so innocent. I was in the living room of my childhood home, the very place I'd spent the last few years renovating, surrounded by familiar faces. My cousin Stella was perched on the sofa armrest, watching me with an unreadable expression, while my brother Jace lingered by the fireplace, his hands buried in his pockets, clearly avoiding eye contact. Come on, Viv, we haven't got all day. Stella chirped, her voice sugary sweet. I couldn't help but notice how oddly formal she looked for what was meant to be a simple family get-together. With the birthday cake still melting sweetly on my tongue, I tore open the envelope. My heart dropped as I saw the legal document staring back at me. A notice of eviction printed in bold, unforgiving letters. What is this? I whispered, barely audible. Mom, Dad, I managed, paper trembling in my hands. You're kicking me out of my own home. The home I poured all my savings and heart into? My mom's face crumpled as she murmured, Sweetheart, we've been waiting for the right time to tell you. Tell me what? I snapped, rising to my feet. Because I'm not getting it. I want answers now. My dear Vivian, please be reasonable, she said, clearing her throat. The house was never officially yours. The deed is still in our names, and we decided it's time for a change. I spun to face her. What do you even know about this? She sighed, smoothing her designer dress. We're trying to help the family make the best financial decision. The market's hot right now. I laughed bitterly, though it sounded more like a strangled sob. This is my home, not some investment property. Finally, my brother Jay spoke up. Viv, maybe we should discuss this privately? No, I roared, slamming the paper down on the coffee table so hard the cake plates rattled. I want answers now. Mom, Dad, why are you doing this? My father wouldn't meet my eyes. There have been concerns about your ability to maintain the property properly, he mumbled. Stella has shown us some disturbing documentation. Documentation? I felt like I was drowning. I've done nothing but improve this house. Look around, new hardwood floors, an updated kitchen, restored Victorian details. I did all that, even if I used some questionable contractors. Stella interjected softly, and there have been noise complaints from neighbors, and unauthorized modifications. That's absolutely false. I cried, my voice cracking. I turned to my best friend, Paisley, who had been silently standing in the corner. Paisley, tell them you've seen every permit. Every single renovation was done by the book. Paisley stepped forward, her eyes fierce. I've seen all the permits myself. Every improvement Viv made was legal, but my family's expressions didn't change. Then my mother reached for my hand. Sweetie, you have 30 days, I jerked away from her touch. 30 days to leave my home? On my birthday. The room started spinning. How long have you been planning this? I demanded. Stella straightened her blazer and said, I think we should all calm down and discuss this rationally. The decision's been made, Vivian. Fighting it will only make it harder. Her perfectly composed mask of false concern made something click inside me. This wasn't just about a house, it was calculated, planned. The formal outfit, the documentation she mentioned, the way she positioned herself as the voice of reason, it was all too deliberate. Get out, I whispered. Then louder, everyone, get out. Vivian, my mom began, but one by one, they filed out of the room, leaving only Paisley behind. As the door closed, I collapsed onto the couch, the eviction notice mocking me from the coffee table. Paisley sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. This isn't over, Viv. Something's not right here, and we're going to figure it out. Wiping away my tears, anger replaced my shock. You're right. Stella's behind this somehow. Ever since we were kids, she's always wanted this house. I looked around at my beloved home, the walls I'd painted, the fixtures I'd restored, the memories I'd built, and made a promise to myself. This wouldn't be the last birthday I celebrated here. Not if I had anything to say about it. The morning after my disastrous birthday, I sat at the kitchen counter, staring at my phone. 17 missed calls from Mom, 5 from Jace, and none from Stella. Of course you need to eat something, Paisley said, sliding a plate of toast in front of me. She'd spent the night on my couch just like old college days. I can't eat, I muttered. I need to figure out what Stella's been telling my parents. My hands trembled as I pulled up Mom's contact info. I'm calling her, I announced. Put it on speaker, Paisley suggested, settling beside me. Mom answered on the first ring. Vivian, thank goodness, we've been so worried. Save it, I cut her off. I want to know exactly what Stella's been saying about me. A heavy sigh came through the speaker. Honey, it's not just what Stella said. She showed us documentation. Unauthorized construction. Noise complaints from the neighborhood association. That's impossible. I slammed my hand on the counter. I have every permit, every approval right here in my files. Who specifically complained? I demanded. Mom hesitated. I don't have the actual complaints in front of me. Stella handled all of that. I laughed bitterly. Did you ever bother to verify it? Or ask me about it before ambushing me on my birthday. Silence stretched between us until Stella's voice, small and defeated, finally broke in. You deny everything? She continued softly. They said you've been struggling financially, that you've been cutting corners. I want copies of every document, every complaint. Everything I showed you today. Vivian, please understand. Understand what? That this house is my life. I've poured every penny I have into it, and I'm not leaving without a fight. I hung up before she could continue. Paisley squeezed my shoulder. That's my girl. So what now? We gather evidence, I said, grabbing my laptop. I need proof that Stella is lying. My phone buzzed with a text from Jace. Meet me at Carlos Coffee in 30. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, I found my brother in our usual corner booth. His face looked guilty. You knew what they were planning, didn't you? I accused as I slid into the seat across from him. Jace ran a hand through his hair. I found out yesterday morning. Mom and Dad swore me to secrecy. Stella had proof that you were in trouble. And you believed her. Of course not, I retorted. He leaned forward, voice low. Something weird is going on. Last week, I overheard Stella talking on the phone about property values and development opportunities in the neighborhood. My heart pounded. Development opportunities? I echoed. Yeah, and get this, her fiancé Valentine. His family owns that new luxury condo complex downtown. The pieces began to fall into place. Our street, one of the last historic areas in town, was prime for development. My house sat on the largest lot, and she wants to sell it to developers. I whispered, that's why she's doing this. There's more, Jace added. I did some digging. Stella's been meeting with the City Planning Commission. And guess who else attended those meetings, Mom and Dad? He nodded. They think they're protecting you from financial ruin, but Stella's playing them. She convinced them that selling is the only way to save you from yourself. My phone buzzed again. An email from Mom with attachments. I opened them quickly and scanned the documents. I showed them to Jace. The letterhead is wrong. The permit numbers don't match my records. She forged them. Keep your voice down, Jace warned, glancing around. Stella's got friends everywhere. I don't care, I insisted. This is proof she's lying. I stood up, energized. I need to show Mom and Dad. Wait, Jace grabbed my wrist. Stella's wedding to Valentine is in 2 weeks. Everyone will be there. Family, friends, business associates. If you're going to expose her, that's your chance to do it properly. I sank back into my seat, my mind racing. 2 weeks to gather enough evidence to prove she's trying to steal my home for her fiancé's development company. I'll help, Jace said firmly. So will Paisley, but we have to be smart about this. I nodded, determination replacing despair. Stella thinks I'm someone who'll just roll over and accept this, but she has no idea what I'm capable of. Walking home, I called Paisley. Hey, remember that friend of yours who works at the city planning office? We need to talk to her now. The game was on, and this time I was playing to win. At the planning office, smelling of stale coffee and printer ink, Paisley's friend Amanda pulled a file from the cabinet and added it to the growing stack on her desk. These are all the development proposals for your neighborhood from the past 6 months, she said quietly, including 3 from Valum Development Group, Valentine's company. I flipped through the pages until my hands froze on a familiar sketch. This is my house, I muttered. Paisley leaned over my shoulder. Look at the date. This was filed 2 months ago, before the eviction notice. Anger built inside me. Before any of this started, Amanda glanced nervously at the door. There's something else. Look at these signatures here. She pointed to the bottom of a document. Your parents' names authorizing a preliminary survey. My stomach lurched. They've been planning this for months. Viv, Paisley said, grabbing my arm and pointing to another name. Look, who notarized it? Marcus Quinn. Stella's father. That sneaky little. I stopped as footsteps echoed in the hallway. Amanda quickly gathered the files and shoved them back into the cabinet. I've got copies at my desk, she whispered. I'll email them to you tonight. We barely made it out before someone entered the office. Leaning against my car, trying to steady my breathing, I texted Paisley, we need to talk to Valentine. And so, the battle for my home had truly begun. Maybe he doesn't know what Stella's up to, I muttered. He needs to see that her company filed the proposals. Just then my phone rang. It was Jace. Sis, you need to get to Mom and Dad's now. What's wrong, he said. Stella's here with a contractor, talking about renovation plans like they already own the place. I was already in my car and said, I'm coming, and 15 minutes later I stormed through my parents' front door. From the kitchen, I heard Stella's smooth, honeyed voice. The whole street will benefit from modernization. Property values will soar. Over my dead body. I snapped, slamming the development proposals onto the kitchen table. When were you planning to tell everyone about Val's plans? My mom's face paled. What are you talking about? She stammered. Stella interjected quickly. Viv, don't listen to her. We were just discussing the neighborhood's future. Your future? Your fiancé's future. I shouted. I pushed the proposals in front of them. Show me. When are you going to reveal the truth about Val's plans? My mother's hands trembled as she picked up the papers. What is this, Stella? Stella's smile didn't waver. These are just details. I'm upset about the eviction. Show them. Show them what? I demanded. The contractor cleared his throat awkwardly. I should go, he mumbled. Stay, Stella commanded softly. Vivian's just causing drama. As usual, always so emotional. I laughed bitterly. Emotional? You forged documents, lied to my parents, You're trying to steal my home for your fiancé's development project. That's enough, my father bellowed. Sulla's expression turned desperate. I've been nothing but helpful. Helpful. Look at these proposals, I said, slamming them down again. Check the dates, check the signatures. You've been planning this for months. My mother's voice trembled as she held the papers. These aren't the documents you showed us earlier. Because they're fake. Sulla snapped. Vivian's desperate tone cut in. You've got copies from the city planning office, official ones. Want to see them? For the first time, Sulla's composure cracked. You have no idea what you're doing, Vivian. No idea who you're dealing with. I turned to my parents. Check your emails. I'm sending you everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every secret meeting with Valum Development. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. Is this true, Sulla? Before she could answer, Sulla was already heading for the door, the contractor trailing behind. At the threshold, she paused and said, This isn't over, Vivian. Not by a long shot. Silence fell over the kitchen. My father stared at the documents, his face ashen. We should have asked you, he finally said. We should have verified everything. I gathered the papers. Now you know the truth. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Leaving the evidence on the table, I got into my car and called Paisley. Phase 1 complete, I said. Now we go after Valentine. Finding Valentine turned out to be easier than expected. I spotted him at his usual lunch spot, a trendy cafe downtown, sitting with his sister Leah. I smoothed my blazer and, with Paisley close behind, approached their table. Mind if we join you? I asked. Without waiting for an answer, I slid into an empty chair. Valentine's fork clattered against his plate as he looked up. Vivian, what are you doing here? Funny story. I was just at the city planning office, reviewing some interesting documents about my house. Leah's eyes narrowed. Your house? The Victorian that Sulla mentioned. The same one your brother's company plans to demolish. I watched Valentine's face carefully. Demolish? Leah turned to him. Val, what is she talking about? He dabbed his mouth with a napkin. This isn't the place. It is the place, I interrupted, pulling out the development proposals. Your company filed these 2 months ago, before the eviction notice, before all of Sulla's lies. Leah snatched the papers from my hand, her face darkening as she read aloud. You're planning to tear down the entire street and replace it with condos? It's a sound business decision, Valentine defended. The neighborhood's undervalued. I cut in sharply. And this is my home. Sulla's been manipulating my family to get it. Your parents were willing sellers, Valentine said. But I caught the uncertainty in his voice. Paisley leaned forward. They were willing because Sulla showed them forged documents claiming you were mismanaging the property. She lied to everyone. Leah pushed her plate away in disgust. Is this why you're rushing the wedding to close the deal? The timing is convenient. Convenient, Valentine admitted with a sigh. I laughed bitterly. You're destroying people's homes, erasing histories. Progress might require sacrifice but not deception. Leah stood abruptly. No, this requires deception. And I'm out of the wedding party. Leah, wait. Valentine called after her, but she had already stormed out. I smiled sweetly. Trouble in paradise. You have no right to interfere with my business, and you have no right to my house. Standing up, I added, by the way, I've sent copies of everything to the city ethics board. They're very interested in how Valum obtained those preliminary approvals. The color drained from Valentine's face. You're bluffing, try me. I dropped a business card on the table. That's my lawyer's number. Use it if you dare. Outside, Leo was waiting by my car. I want to help, he said. Why should I trust you? I asked. Because I've watched Stella manipulate my brother for months. I know how she operates. Leah's eyes flashed as she reappeared. And because I have access to Val's internal files, she added. Paisley grabbed my arm. Viv, this could be huge. What's in it for you? I looked at Leah steadily. Justice and the satisfaction of watching Stella's perfect plan implode. She pulled out her phone and began showing emails between her and my brother, dating back 6 months. I scanned the messages, my heart racing. There it was. Explicit discussion of their scheme to pressure my parents into a forced sale to fast-track the development. That's exactly what we need, Paisley breathed. Leah continued. There's more board meetings, private conversations, financial arrangements. I can get you everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Jace. Mom and Dad want to talk. They've seen the evidence. Looks like the tide is turning. I told Leah, we need to move fast. The wedding's in 10 days. Perfect timing for everything to fall apart, she said grimly. I'll send you what I have tonight. As Leah walked away, Paisley leaned in. Are you sure about this? Using her, using us too. I pointed firmly. Right now we all want the same thing. Then my phone buzzed with an unknown number. The message made my blood run cold. Back off now or you'll regret it. Paisley read over my shoulder. She's threatening you. She's desperate. I saved the message as evidence. Desperate people make mistakes, I muttered. I headed toward my car, determination fueling every step. Let's go see my parents. It's time to show them exactly who they've been protecting. The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd hoped, but Stella's threat lingered. A warning that this fight was far from over. And something told me the worst was yet to come. I woke the next morning to the sound of breaking glass. Jumping out of bed, I rushed downstairs to find my front window shattered. A brick lying among the shards. Wrapped around the brick was a note. Final warning. My hands trembled as I called the police. While waiting, I texted Paisley and Jace. They arrived before the officers did. This has gone too far, Jace said as he examined the brick. You need to be careful, Viv. I'm not backing down now. I handed the note to an officer who was taking my statement. This is connected to a larger situation. I have documentation. Just file a restraining order, the officer suggested, clearly bored. Not much we can do without proof of who threw it. After they left, Paisley helped me board up the window. At least we have Leah's evidence now, she said. Those emails she sent last night are devastating. Then my phone buzzed with 3 missed calls from Mom. I need to go see them. They've had time to process everything. Jace insisted on coming along. 20 minutes later, we sat in our parents' living room. Mom's eyes were red from crying. We've been such fools, she whispered. All those documents Sulla showed us, we wanted to believe she was helping. And the development plans, we had no idea they planned to demolish the whole street. We thought they were just renovating. Dad added heavily. Stella knew exactly what buttons to push. She played on your concerns about me and made you think I was in trouble. She's been manipulating this family for years. Jace reminded. Remember when she convinced you to give her grandma's jewelry instead of keeping it? My mom's face crumpled. You never wanted it, she said quietly. I never said that, I replied, swallowing hard. Just like I never made unauthorized changes to the house. Never had any complaints from the neighbors. Dad nodded. We've talked to everyone on the street. No one ever complained. In fact, they all love what you've done with the place. My phone buzzed again. An emergency text from Leah. Meet me at Riverside Park now. I stood up. I have to go, but first, are you with me on this? I asked. Really with me? Mom squared her shoulders. We'll do whatever it takes to make this right. At the park, Leah paced near the fountain, her face pale. Sulla knows I helped you, she confided. She's threatening to reveal something about my past to the board of Valum. What? I asked. A mistake I made years ago. It could ruin my career, she admitted, running her hands through her hair. I can't risk it, right? She whispered. Hey, I grabbed her shoulders firmly. Whatever it is, it can't be worse than what Sulla's doing now. You don't understand, Leah said, her voice cracking. My whole life could fall apart. Then let it, I said harshly. Sometimes you have to lose everything to do the right thing. Leah's eyes filled with tears. Easy for you to say, you're just fighting for a house. No, I insisted softly. I'm fighting for justice. For the truth. For every person Sulla has ever manipulated or hurt. Maybe he doesn't even know what Sulla's up to. He needs to see that her company already filed the proposals. Just then my phone rang. It was Jace. Sis, you need to get to Mom and Dad's now. What's happening? Sulla's here with a contractor, talking about renovation plans like they already own the place. I was still in my car. I'm on my way, I replied. 15 minutes later, I stormed through my parents' front door. From the kitchen, I heard Sulla's voice, smooth as honey. The entire street will benefit from modernization. Property values will skyrocket. Over my dead body, I announced, slamming the development proposals onto the kitchen table. When were you going to tell everyone about Valentine's plans? My mom's face went pale. What do you mean, she stammered. Sulla quickly interjected, Viv, don't listen to her. We were just discussing the neighborhood's future. Your future? Your fiancé's future. I shot back, pushing the proposals in front of them. Tell me, when are you going to admit the truth about Valentine's plans? My mom's hands trembled as she picked up the papers. What is this, Sulla? With a steady smile, Sulla replied, these are just details. I'm upset about the eviction, now show them. The contractor cleared his throat awkwardly. I should be going, stay, Stella ordered softly. Vivian's just stirring up drama as usual, always so emotional. I scoffed. Emotional? You forged documents, lied to my parents. Basically, you're trying to steal my home for your fiancé's development project. Enough, my father bellowed. Sulla's expression grew desperate. I've only been trying to help. Help? Look at these proposals. I roared, slamming them down again. Check the dates, check the signatures. This has been in the works for months. My mother's voice wavered as she clutched the papers. These aren't the same documents you showed us earlier. Because they're fake. Sulla snapped. I cut in, you've got official copies from the city planning office. Want to see them? For the first time, Sulla's cool demeanor cracked. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Vivian. I turned to my parents. Check your emails. I'm sending you everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every secret meeting with Valum Development. My mother's voice softened. Barely a whisper. Is this true, Sulla? Before she could answer, Sulla was already heading for the door, the contractor trailing behind. At the threshold, she paused. This isn't over, Vivian. Not by a long shot. Silence fell over the room. My father stared at the documents, his face ashen. We should have asked you sooner, he finally said. We should have verified everything. I gathered the papers. Now you know the truth. So what are you going to do about it? Leaving the evidence on the table, I rushed to my car and called Paisley. Phase 1 is complete, I said. Now we move on to Valentine. Finding Valentine turned out to be easier than expected. I spotted him at his usual lunch spot, a trendy downtown cafe, sitting with his sister Leah. Smoothing my blazer, I approached their table with Paisley close behind. Mind if we join you? I asked, then slid into an empty chair. Valentine's fork clattered against his plate. Vivian, what are you doing here? Funny story. I was just at the city planning office reviewing some very interesting documents about your house. Leah's eyes narrowed. Your house? The Victorian Sella mentioned. The same one your brother's company plans to demolish. I watched Valentine's face carefully. Demolish? Leah turned to him sharply. Val, what is she talking about? He dabbed his mouth with a napkin. This isn't the place. It is the place, I interrupted, pulling out the development proposals. Your company filed these 2 months ago. Before the eviction notice, before all of Sella's lies. Leah snatched the papers, her expression darkening as she read aloud. You're planning to tear down the entire street and replace it with condos? It's a sound business decision, Valentine defended. The neighborhood's undervalued. I shot back, and this is my home. Sella's been manipulating my family to get it. Valentine hesitated. Your parents were willing sellers, he murmured, but I caught the uncertainty in his tone. Paisley leaned forward. They were willing because Sella showed them forged documents claiming you were mismanaging the property. She lied to everyone. Leah pushed her plate away in disgust. Is this why you're rushing the wedding? To close the deal. The timing is just too convenient. Convenient, Valentine admitted with a sigh. I laughed bitterly. You're destroying people's homes, erasing history. Progress might require sacrifice, but not deception. Leah stood abruptly. No, this requires deception. And I'm out of the wedding party. Leah, wait. Valentine called after her, but she had already stormed out. I smiled coolly. Trouble in paradise. You have no right to interfere with my business, and you have no right to my house. Standing, I added, by the way, I've sent copies of everything to the city ethics board. They're very interested in how Valum obtained those preliminary approvals. The color drained from Valentine's face. You're bluffing, try me. I dropped a business card on the table. That's my lawyer's number. Use it if you dare. Outside, Leo was waiting by my car. I want to help, he said. Why should I trust you? I asked sharply. Because I've seen how Stella manipulates my brother. And I know how she operates. Leah reappeared, eyes flashing. And because I have access to Valentine's internal files, she added. Paisley grabbed my arm. Viv, this could be huge. What's in it for you? I looked at Leah steadily. Justice and the satisfaction of watching Sella's perfect plan implode. She pulled out her phone and began scrolling through emails between her and my brother from the past 6 months. I scanned the messages, heart racing. There it was, explicit discussions about pressuring my parents to force a sale, fast-tracking the development. That's exactly what we need, Paisley breathed. Leah continued. There's more board meetings, private conversations, financial arrangements. I can get you everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Jace. Mom and Dad want to talk. They've seen the evidence. Looks like the tide is turning. I told Leah, we need to move fast. The wedding's in a week, and the rehearsal dinner is in 3 days. Leah straightened up. You're right. I can't let her win, not again. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Hope you enjoyed the brick. Next time it won't be your window. I showed Leah the message. Her face hardened. She's really losing it. Good, I said. The more desperate she gets, the more mistakes she makes. Leah nodded. At the rehearsal dinner, all the investors, board members, and family will be there. A perfect time to expose everything. But Sella will be expecting something. We have to be prepared. I smiled grimly. Then we'll be even more prepared. I need every document, every email, every piece of evidence you can get. And I need them tonight. Leah agreed. I'll have them to you in 2 hours, she said, then walked away. My phone buzzed again, this time it was Paisley. Your mom just called. Sella's at their house. She's crying, saying you're trying to ruin her life. Your parents aren't buying it, but she's putting on quite a show. I texted back, let her perform. In 3 days, she'll have a real reason to cry. The stakes were higher now, the threats more serious. With every desperate move Sella made, she only proved how close we were to bringing her down. The countdown to the rehearsal dinner had begun. The day before the rehearsal dinner, I sat in my lawyer's office, surrounded by stacks of evidence. Sarah, my attorney, flipped through the documents with growing interest. These emails between Sella and Valum are damning, she said. And the forged documents, that's criminal. But is it enough to stop the development? Absolutely, I replied. I want to press charges. She leaned forward. Are you sure you want to do this at the rehearsal dinner? It's perfect timing. Every investor and family member will be there. My phone buzzed with another threat, this time from Stella. Last chance to back down. Remember, I know about Miami. Sarah caught my expression. What's wrong? I asked. She's trying to blackmail me now? I showed her the text. The Miami thing? It was just a stupid spring break mistake from college. She thinks she can use it against me. Document everything, Sarah advised, handing me a USB drive. I've organized all the evidence here, including the police report on the brick. Are you sure you don't want private security? I'll be fine. Jason, Paisley, they'll be with me tomorrow night, I said. Later, I found Leah waiting in her car. Get in, Viv. There's something you need to see. She drove us to Valum's office building, parking in the underground garage. Valentine and Sella are in a board meeting upstairs. But look at this, she said, pulling out her tablet to show security footage from earlier that day. On the tape, I saw Sella arguing in the garage. Her father's voice was raised. I can't keep covering for you. Her father continued. The notary stamps the forged documents. It's too risky. Daddy, please, just one more day after the rehearsal dinner. It won't matter anymore. What's happening after the rehearsal dinner? I asked Leah. I don't know, but they've booked a private room at the restaurant. Invitation only after the main event, she explained. My phone rang. Viv, you need to get home now. Someone's been in your house. Paisley's urgent tone cut through the call. I broke every speed limit to get back. When I arrived, Paisley and Jace were waiting outside. Inside, every renovation I'd done, every wall I'd painted, every fixture I'd restored, had been marked with bright red X's, as if someone was documenting everything they planned to destroy. Look at this, Jace said quietly. They're planning to tear down everything. Paisley picked up a business card left on the counter. Look who's handling the demolition, she said. The company name made my blood boil. It belonged to Stella's uncle. They're keeping it all in the family, I muttered bitterly. How did they even get in? Mom called Jace. Stella asked to borrow her spare key this morning. Said she needed to measure for wedding decorations, and Mom gave it to her. No, but when she refused, Stella broke down crying, saying you were trying to ruin her special day, Jace added. Mom admitted. I know where we keep the spare. I sank onto the stairs, staring at the red X's all over my home. This is my grandmother's house, I whispered. I learned to walk on these floors, had my first kiss by that bay window, and you're not going to take it from me. Paisley's voice was firm. Tomorrow night we end this. Then my phone buzzed with an emergency text from Leah. Sala's changed the seating arrangements. You're not invited to the private meeting anymore. I texted back, doesn't matter. We'll expose everything during the main dinner. More witnesses, more impact. I spent the rest of the day with Sarah, finalizing our strategy. By nightfall, everything was ready. Lying in bed, I heard footsteps on my porch. I grabbed my phone to call the police and crept to the window, only to see my mother leaving something by the door. I opened it and found a small package with a note. Your grandmother wanted you to have this. I should have given it to you years ago. Love, Mom. Inside was my grandmother's antique locket, the one Stella had claimed I didn't want. Opening it, I found a tiny photograph of my grandmother, standing proudly in front of the house on the day she bought it. My phone then lit up with one final threat from Stella. Hope you're ready for tomorrow because I am. I touched the locket, then looked at the red X's marking my walls. Bring it on, I whispered. Tomorrow everything will change. Either I save my home and expose Stella's schemes, or I lose everything I fought for. Looking at my grandmother's proud smile in that old photograph, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going down without a fight. The rehearsal dinner was charged with nervous energy. Stella presided at the main table, resplendent in white, while Valentine charmed investors all around the room. I sat between Paisley and Jace, my grandmother's locket cool against my skin, waiting for the right moment. Look who just arrived, Paisley whispered. Just then Sarah, my lawyer, walked in with Leah right on schedule. Stella's smile flickered for a moment before she recovered, rising to greet them. Leah, darling. I was worried you wouldn't make it after our disagreement. I wouldn't miss it, Leah said coldly, then turned to the assembled guests. Have you met Sarah? She specializes in real estate fraud. The room hushed slightly. Valentine appeared at Stella's side, his hand tight on hers. Perhaps we should start the toasts? He suggested. Wonderful idea. Came the chorus of polite agreement. I stood up, raising my glass. I'd like to go first, I declared. Stella's face drained of color. That's not on the program, she hissed. Oh, but I insist, I said, moving to the center of the room. After all, what kind of cousin would I be if I didn't congratulate you on your achievements? The room fell silent as all eyes turned to me. Vivian, dear, my mother warned softly. Mom, it's okay. I'm just going to share some very interesting documents with everyone. I nodded to Sarah, who began distributing folders to the investors. Consider it my wedding gift. Security. Stella called out, but Leah blocked the door. Let's start with the emails, I continued, my voice echoing. These detailed plans to forge documents, manipulate my family, and steal my home for Valentine's development project. Valentine stepped forward. These are private business matters. Fraud is never private. Neither is forgery, Sarah interjected coolly, which brings us to Exhibit B. The falsified complaints and permits, complete with unauthorized notary stamps from Stella's father. At that, Stella's father stood up, face red. Wait just a minute. The ethics board is very interested in your involvement, Sarah added smoothly. They'll be in touch. You're ruining everything. Stella shrieked, lunging for the folders, but Jace was faster, passing copies to the board members. Like you tried to ruin my life, he hissed. The threats, the brick through my window, the break-in. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Valentine's sister stood up. The police have been notified, she announced. They're here for everything. Val, do something. Stella pleaded. But Valentine was busy reading the documents, his face growing darker with each page. You told me your family agreed to sell, that everything was legal, just business, he said. Stella, it's simple property acquisition, she protested weakly. Simple? I'm pulling up the security footage, I said, playing the clip on my phone. Listen to her voice. After the rehearsal dinner, she says, it won't matter anymore. What were you planning, Valentine? He demanded. What happens after dinner? Stella's silence was damning. Finally, her father broke it. The demolition crew is scheduled for midnight. My voice cracked. You plan to destroy my home tonight. While everyone celebrated your wedding? Chaos erupted. Investors stormed out. Board members huddled in corners. Family members argued loudly. Amid the turmoil, Stella stood frozen, her perfect world crumbling. Valentine announced, the development deal is off, and so is the wedding. But the deposits, the contracts, Stella's voice was small, are void due to fraud, Sarah supplied matter-of-factly, as is the eviction notice. My mother slowly approached Stella. How could you do this to family, she whispered. I said quietly, because she never cared about family, only power, only control regardless of who she hurts. Stella's composure finally broke. You think you've won, you've ruined everything I worked for, she screamed. No, I replied as I touched my grandmother's locket. You did this yourself. All your lies, all your schemes, all your betrayals. The police arrived, asking questions and taking statements. I watched as Stella's carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. The house is yours, my father said, hugging me tightly. It always was, we just forgot what family really means. Later, standing outside the restaurant, Paisley squeezed my hand. How does it feel? I looked up at the night sky, thinking of my grandmother's photograph. Like justice, like coming home. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Leah. Board meeting tomorrow. Valum Development is pulling out of all neighborhood projects. You did it, justice indeed. But then watching Stella being escorted to a police car, mascara streaking her cheeks, I felt no joy in her downfall. Only relief that my home, my family's legacy was safe at last. The morning sun streamed through my newly repaired window as I sipped coffee on the front porch. A newspaper headline caught my eye. Valum Development faces investigation. CEO steps down. Below it, a smaller headline. Local woman charged with fraud conspiracy. My phone rang. It was Leah. Have you seen the news? I asked, scrolling through the headlines on my phone. Just reading it now. How are you holding up? Leah replied, better than expected. The board made me interim CEO. Turns out exposing corruption has its perks. A car pulled into my driveway. My parents were there. Mom carefully carrying a large box and Dad lugging what looked like photo albums. I'll call you back, I told Leah before heading inside. Mom set the box down gently. We've been going through the attic and found some things that belong here, she explained. Inside were pieces of my grandmother's life. Her journal, recipes, old letters. Dad opened one of the albums and pointed to a yellowed photograph. That's her, the day she bought this house. She said it was the proudest moment of her life. Until you were born, Mom added softly. She always wanted you to have it. Just then, the screen door creaked open as Paisley emerged with a fresh pot of coffee. Look, someone just pulled up a police car across the street, she announced. Officer Martinez approached, holding a document. Miss Harding, we've recovered some items from Stella's office. Things she took from your house. He handed me a folder. Also, she's agreed to a plea deal, a full confession. The DA wants to know if you'll testify about the harassment, he added. I looked out my repaired window, recalling the brick, the threats, the fear. Yes, I will, I said firmly. Officer Martinez nodded and left. Mom gently touched one of the recovered photographs. This was taken on your 5th birthday. Stella was so jealous of your party that she even threw cake at you. We should have seen the signs back then, I murmured. We all missed them, but we can't change the past. At that moment, Jace's truck rumbled up the street. And to my surprise, Valentine was in the passenger seat carrying construction supplies. Before you say anything, Jace called out, I volunteered. Valentine set down a paint can. I owe you, really, we all do. Let me help restore what we almost destroyed. I studied him for a moment and then nodded. Start with the back porch. It needs new railings. The day unfolded like a healing breath. While Jace and Valentine worked on repairs, Mom and I sorted through my grandmother's belongings. Paisley organized a neighborhood potluck on the lawn, and even Leah stopped by, bringing corporate documents that showed Valentine's new commitment to historic preservation. The board wants to set up a fund to help homeowners restore historic properties instead of demolishing them, she explained. Karma works in mysterious ways, Paisley mused as evening approached and neighbors gathered on the lawn to share food and stories. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door brought her famous empanadas, the very ones your grandmother loved. She used to host dinners like this all the time, Mrs. Rodriguez recalled. The house was always full of life. I touched my locket, thinking of the photograph tucked inside. Maybe it's time to restart that tradition. Dad raised his glass. To new beginnings and old foundations. Mom added, to home. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Plea deal finalized. Stella's serving time now, and the house is officially safe. I looked around at my family, friends, and neighbors gathered together. It hit me. This house isn't just walls and windows, not just a property to be saved. It's a home full of memories and endless possibilities. You know, your birthday is coming up again, Paisley said with a smile. No surprise parties this time? I laughed. No, but maybe a proper housewarming celebration. I watched as Jace and Valentine bantered good-naturedly about porch designs. Mom shared my grandmother's recipes with the neighbors, and Dad recounted stories about the house's history to rapt listeners. I'd like that, I said. A fresh start was in the air. The evening wind carried the scent of blooming jasmine, my grandmother's favorite, planted along the fence years ago. And just like the house itself, it had endured through every storm and setback. I raised my glass. To coming home, I toasted. The gathered crowd echoed the toast, their voices mingling with the sound of crickets and distant wind chimes. This was what Stella never understood. No development plan could ever capture the heart of a home that beats strong through generations. I sat on the porch steps surrounded by love and laughter, knowing that while the battle for my house was over, the story of this home was just beginning. And this time every page would be filled with joy instead of fear, with welcome instead of walls, with the family you're born to and the family you choose. This was my legacy, my victory, my peace, and it was beautiful.